Okay, it is Joe, Louise, and Sheila. And we're going to be discussing a video that's out called Crowley Case Updates from June 9th of 2020. We're going to start the video now, and then we will be pausing to interject and say a few things during the video.
Hello, my name is Dan Hennen. Today is June 9th, 2020, and I'm going to do an episode tonight on Crowley Case Updates. Got a few updates here, some things to go over. The main point of this video tonight is to do a response, essentially a secondary video, based on the very good video that Catherine Michelle did on June 1st.
Okay, so first we want to stop this right here. The video that Catherine Michelle did was actually December 29th of 2018. Recently, Greg Fernandez put up another video or a rehash of the video from December. So this video that Dan is talking about is a year and a half old. So already, it may be a mistake on Dan Hennen's part. It may not be, where he's misleading people, but this video is a year and a half old. So I have that correct, right, guys?
You do,
Yep.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to continue.
Catherine Michelle did a very good video on June 1st that really related to her questions to lead detective and Sergeant James Gallert of the Apple Valley Police Department. She had some questions for him. He answered her, and she went over on that video some of the questions she had with his answers and some of the, conclusions she drew from his responses. Now, number one, it's very good that he's open enough and can talk about this and do phone calls like this with her. I think it's going to be a moot point going forward. The investigation is closed. It seems like it's just shut down. They're not interested in doing anything more with it.
Okay, we know they're not interested in doing anything more with it. Detective Gummert was actually very clear that the case was closed, and it was closed based on their investigation. It was closed based on their training and their experience. They spent a better part of a year investigating this case and did a pretty good job at it at that. This did not just involve Apple Valley Police Department. It actually involved the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. It also involved the Dakota County Sheriff's Electronic Crime Unit and the Hennepin County Coroner's Office. You guys got anything else you want to add?
No, I think that you're on par at the moment. Can you possibly turn the volume up on the video a little bit?
Let me take a look here. It's at 100%. Can you not hear it?
I was struggling on the last bit.
Okay, let me see if this helps.
James Gummert proceeded to say that several times, that nothing more that gets presented to them ever leads them to reopen this case. Very strange to hear something like that in a case of this magnitude. It's a big case that took place in December of 2014, or early part of January of 2015. Regardless, it's almost a 5.5-year-old case, and after time and time again of citizen journalists bringing information, data, and facts and evidence to the authorities, and not only to the authorities, but other people in the state of Minnesota, and other people in Apple Valley, Minnesota, it seems to fall on deaf ears. So that's the takeaway I get from her video.
Okay, I'm going to stop this for a second because I want to go in and hopefully we can see this. And this is what Detective Gummert actually really said.
I'm answering that. What I see is that we completed a thorough investigation and that I have not seen anything to date, including the information you provided me, that gives me any cause for concern that we missed something on that. It needs to be reopened.
Okay, so you guys heard that as well.
Yep.
The Detective Gummer outright said that, you know, it's not that citizen investigators, as they want to call themselves, are bringing further information to them. It's just the information they're bringing is not bearing any fruit. Um, they brought up a theory about multiple blunt force trauma, and when that was brought up, you know, Catherine Michelle actually brought that up, and they outright said that they didn't see any multiple blunt force trauma. I'm going to back up a little bit on the recording that I just played, and I'm going to actually go for the whole length of the recording, and they talk about the multiple blunt force trauma as well.
Okay.
I guess for reviewing all the data you provided, for me, I agree with our conclusion, and I don't agree with what you're asserting. I guess
That was on the multiple blunt force trauma.
Okay,
Yeah.
so basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, then, is that you are not saying that you see the multiple blunt force trauma.
I'm answering that what I see is that we completed a thorough investigation and that I have not seen anything to date, including the information you provided me, that gives me any cause for concern that we missed something on that. It needs to be reopened.
Okay, so as you guys heard, you know, they didn't see any multiple blunt force trauma. Early on in Catherine Michelle's video from December 29th, Detective Gummer actually says that, you know, it's easy to look at a picture, but both himself and several other detectives were on scene at the, not only at the scene, you know, and he says that they were at the scene from beginning to end. They were at the home, they were at the autopsies, and all along the investigation, they had multiple contact with individuals and with evidence, and there was nothing that came up, you know, to show multiple blunt force trauma. So, and I believe Louise, you heard that as well in the video, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what else he has to
He's
say.
he's
Mhm.
saying that I've listened to what you've said. However, I'm politely saying that we'll have to agree to disagree because of having a first-hand experience of being on the scene. I know what I saw with my own eyes, and I have faith in the medical examiner and my other investigators and the forensics, and I have peace of mind that they fulfilled their jobs to a legal requirement. That's how I interpret it anyway.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
right. So basically, you know, he states that Catherine Michelle and Dan Hennen were not present. So he physically saw this evidence, whereas they have not. Catherine Michelle is in Colorado somewhere. Dan Hennen is in the state of Minnesota, but he obviously, you know, did not, you know, attend any of these autopsies or the investigation period. Not only that, but you know, it's needed to be brought up that none of the other individuals in this case, whether it be Catherine Michelle, Dan Hennen, Sophia, or Greg Fernandez Jr., none of them have any law enforcement background. None of them have any law enforcement training. None of them have ever been on a legitimate crime scene and been
Joe,
involved. Go ahead.
you're a qualified paramedic as well, aren't you?
I did over 20 years in EMS as both a paramedic and an EMT. Yeah.
I thought so.
So, and I've been on crime scenes. As a matter of fact, one of my last calls was a murder that the husband tried to set up to make it look like a burglary, And this is just some of the things that you see. You go into these scenes, and you're taught, and as an EMT, and then further on as a paramedic, you are taught crime scene, how to handle a crime scene, what to look for, what to touch, what not to touch. It's all this, this stuff. And that's just on the EMS side. On the police department side, they're meticulous in what they come in and they process.
But if you've seen, like you as a paramedic must have seen stabbings and people who've been like violently assaulted near the point of death, but have then survived. Have you seen multiple blunt force trauma in a patient?
We actually don't call it multiple blunt force trauma. We actually call it what do you call it? We actually call it multi-system trauma. And it basically, yeah, I mean, you can see from the bruising, you're going to see bruising, you may see broken bones. There's you know there's a lot of things that you'll see, and the signs are obvious.
And those signs would still be there post-mortem, if somebody had been beaten and tortured and all
Yeah,
these other things.
if somebody has been beaten, if they've been tortured, gunshots, if somebody was beaten and tortured, some of the things they're going to look for is a lacerated liver, a ruptured spleen. This is signs that a person was beaten, or even tortured.
Yeah.
So there's common, even with the, in this case, both of the victims, or all three of the victims, they had been considerably decomposed. But you can also find retina detachment. You can find,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you can look for.
But like, if this is sort of sidetracking slightly, but just say hypothetically, I booted the living daylights out of someone, repeatedly stamped on them, that would be multiple, like, kind of blunt force trauma, wouldn't it? Because
It
it's
would,
multiple kicking with the blunt force of my my foot. It's
it
blunt
would,
object. It's not sharp. It might be technically called something else in the medical field, but a repeated beating in the same area.
Yep, it would definitely, and it would show up. Matter of fact, sometimes there's been cases where people have been kicked by people who were wearing boots or work boots, and the actual imprint of the sole of the boot has been there,
Yeah,
and they can see it.
yeah, I've seen a few stories online where they've covered that, and it's horrendous, isn't it? Like, you can literally see like this imprint.
Yep. All right, let's see what else.
Horrible. Okay, yeah,
Let's see what else.
carry on.
And I'm doing this update now for everyone today. One comment that James Gallmer made in the video that Catherine did in their phone call was saying, he said several times that he's open to different opinions, he's open to different ideas, thoughts, theories, and things like that. So he essentially kind of brush aside the things that we've been bringing to light.
Actually, we all just heard what Detective Gummer said. He did close the conversation with Catherine Michelle by saying that she had his phone number if she had wanted to call him about anything else later on down the line. But he was very clear. You guys actually heard, out of his own words from him, that they looked into the case, they investigated the case, they came up with their findings, and he fully stood behind the findings. So
Correct.
he wasn't brushing anything off. He listened to them, but there was no evidence to show what they were showing. He literally said, "I did not see blunt force trauma."
Yeah, and I can't see a detective saying or inferring, we know that this man murdered his wife and child and killed himself. And we know that for a fact with all the evidence. And the case, there's no prosecutions, it's exceptionally cleared. But yeah, we'll have a phone call anytime you like about any other potential theory that you think might have happened, which would undermine the whole case is closed. Why would you do that? Close the case and then go, yeah, but it could have happened like this.
I
If
think
anyone could explain that to me, I'd
I
appreciate it.
I think he was just being polite. I think he was just being polite.
I think he meant if there's a specific thing that you really, really think is vitally important that we know, then feel free to pass that information on to us. I don't think he's saying, let's sit down and chat theories.
Right. No, he's not saying let's chat theories at all. He's actually just saying he's leaving the door open if they ever do come up with something that's legitimate, they're willing to look at it. But I mean, this pointing the finger, this one did it, that one did it, this could have happened. I mean, right in this same audio, this same conversation that Catherine Michelle had, she actually tells Gummer that if they're not going to open the case up, and you guys are both aware of this, if you're not going to open the case up, then I'm just going to say the government did this. You're kidding me, right?
It's crazy. Sheila,
Oh.
do you have
Well,
anything to say?
I'm kind of just sort of like speechless over it. I congratulate them because they're being so tenacious, but process of elimination, you can't just keep accusing people and coming up with different scenarios and saying things regardless.
Yeah,
And just
like you
hope
say,
that
Sheila,
some of it comes up.
process of elimination,
Yeah,
not add more.
no,
Well, they actually, it's funny because in this same video that she did, talking to Detective Gummer, she actually says that she, not a coroner, not an investigator, nothing, she sent him pictures of the people who may have done it. She sent them pictures of their animals, etc. And Gummer again says, look, there's nothing here. There's nothing here.
As much as you might want it to be something, it's not what you think you're seeing.
I mean, to an outside person, David Crowley might have been a great guy, but behind closed doors, people are different.
yeah.
And it's clear that there was a lot more going on with David and Camille. They say in their emails that they're dealing with private, personal stuff and they don't wish to divulge it any further.
Yep, absolutely.
And some of the journal entries and some of the things that we've been trusted with in little bits of snippets, it gives you more of an idea. And
Well,
you look at other things and you can see that,
I think there's
some people
other
put a
things.
front on.
I think there's other things too that people don't realize when you're looking at this case. I mean, you've had the Apple Valley Police Department, VCA, Dakota County Sheriff's Department, all these people have looked into this and said, look, this is what happened. Okay. Dan Hennen, to his credit, actually hired a private investigator named Ken Maines, who's very, very well known, has a stellar reputation. Ken Maines actually went and reviewed the documentation, which is what he was hired to do. And before Dan even got the results back, somebody had said, what if he comes back and says that David did this? And Dan said, I don't care. Or that's not what he wasn't interested in hearing.
I'm not interested in his opinion.
Right. He wasn't interested in his opinion. You paid $7,000, but you're not interested in his opinion. And then what happened was you're already attacking Apple Valley. You're already attacking BCA. You're attacking the medical examiner. Now your investigator comes to you and says, hey, look, I looked at this stuff and I agree with them. You know, this is what happened. I can't give you a blow by blow because we weren't there, but from the evidence, this is what I see. You know, and then they turned to a personal attack on him. It's bad with, you know, what's happening, because every time
He was
somebody disagrees,
compromised.
well, every time somebody disagrees, you know, they're automatically wrong, or they have a mental health problem or whatever. And that's not the case here. I mean, how many people have to investigate this case? You know, and I think that the case was, you know, right in the actual case file, the very last section of the case, you know, the very last, I'll call it the very last entry, says, with the conclusion of the review of the digital devices, there is no other information available for further investigation. It says, throughout the investigation, the Apple Valley Police Department has not discovered any information or any evidence that shows anybody but, meaning except, David Crowley is the perpetrator of these crimes, including the killing of his wife, child, and himself. And they used the status term exceptionally cleared. That doesn't mean that David was cleared and he was innocent. That just means that David was deceased and couldn't be charged.
Yeah, as we put many a presentation out
Yes, we have
explaining,
mentioned that. Yes.
You know, and then
as
another,
have the Apple Valley police themselves.
and then the other thing too that seems to be going out there, which is going to come up later on, but I'm going to bring it up now. Item number 57 is the bullet that killed David Crowley. There's this whole thing about touch DNA and how, you know, supposedly there was touch DNA. I actually have in front of me, okay, the laboratory report from BCA. It's laboratory report S15 00662. It's report number 4, item 57-1, which is the bullet from the attic. Male DNA profile matches David Timothy Crowley, does not match Kamel Rasul Crowley or Rania Crowley. Would not be expected to occur more than once among unrelated individuals in the world population. Due to insufficient genetic information, no statement on minors types. So they're not saying there's no minor types. They're not saying there is minor types. They're just saying there's not enough genetic information there to say that. But they're not saying touch DNA. They're saying physical DNA showed them that this was in fact the bullet that killed David.
Correct. And when you think that that bullet was stood in an attic for nearly 2 months after it had been fired, it's not kept in clinical conditions, sterile environment at the appropriate temperature to keep all the DNA and the cells at optimum.
Right. It wasn't, it was already degraded when they found it, and it was gonna degrade even more.
It had
Yeah.
passed through sheetrock, which may contain lime or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's really, really bad news for any DNA material.
Exactly. It passed through sheetrock, it passed through wood, it passed through insulation. All these are contaminants. On top of being contaminants, they're also going to cause, you know, you have friction from the bullet being fired. You have the initial impact with the, you know, the sheetrock going into the attic. You got stuff, you know, getting pushed out of the way from the actual bullet, you know, and that's not even talking about penetrating his head.
Without being vulgar about it, but if that bullet was wet, or you know what I mean, and then it's gone into the attic and it's gone through the fiberglass, well, that's unsettling all the particles, and then all those particles like to stick to wet things, so it would have been contaminated with things on it as well that would have to be carefully extracted when they were doing the scientific testing, because it's
You're-
not as simple as just, you know, like getting out a magnifying glass and doing an eye comparison.
Yeah,
You're right.
they need to get a good grade basically to test.
Well, remember this too. Sheetrock is porous. The insulation is porous. That's going to pull moisture out
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we got to go with what Dan's saying. I can't believe we're only 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the video.
And Catherine made a good job of reinforcing the fact that these aren't just theories. These aren't just random thoughts and ideas from a conspiracy theorist group. These are facts and evidence
Hang on.
showing.
No, we can't have that.
No, they're definitely not facts. They are theories. They are opinions.
For it to be a fact, it has to be validated of somebody who's qualified to validate it and prepared to go on record, who's prepared to, in essence, stand up in court and say, I wholeheartedly 100% see this and would stake my job on it.
Yeah, as an expert witness
Well, the key there is, right, your job or what you're trained to do.
Yeah.
No, you have people, by Dan's own admission, by Greg's own admission, they're not police officers. They're not trained in forensics. They're not, they're citizen journalists. Okay. They're not trained in this. They could not get up on a stand and say, in my opinion, they could say in my opinion, but they can't say this is 100% fact that this is this.
And if you were asked for your opinion, aren't you, before you give that opinion, going to be asked for your experience as to why your opinion matters more than the next person?
Your
as to how it's relevant. Yeah.
Your opinion, your credentials, all that, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You want to continue,
so
or you?
Yeah, no, we're
go for
facts and evidence.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
That the Apple Valley Police Department has indeed failed in their investigation of the Crowley case. Failed.
I don't think the Apple Valley Police Department failed.
No, I
No,
think
I don't
they
think
might
they
have
did.
made a few little errors.
With hindsight, there are things that they probably would have done differently, but they were dealing with what they were dealing with. It was for them a kind of a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, given the circumstances, I think they didn't do too shabby a job.
I don't think they did that bad of a job either. I think the scene was probably horrific. And I think it's probably, actually, I can say from talking to several of the investigators on the, in the chief's office, prior to making this video, I've talked to Detective Gummer numerous times. I've email exchanged with them as well. This is probably one of the most horrific scenes that they have seen in their entire career.
Yeah. And this is the thing as well, that this case will be with them the rest of their lives. They will never forget what they saw, what they had to deal with. It will stay with them, and they will have to live with it.
Because they've had the rest of their career put under a microscope.
Yeah, but this will stay with them for sure.
Well, this is going to stay with them mentally, but also when you have people going out there, and that's going to come out in this again as well, in this very video, Detective Gummer and the Apple Valley Police Department did not hide anything. They were very forthcoming.
Yeah.
I mean, they shared. I mean, these so-called civil, civilian journalists or whatever they want to call themselves.
Citizen investigators.
Right. They want to call them this. They need to realize they do not have, nor will they ever get, access to the entire case file.
No.
And
that's quite right.
And there's stuff there that the police can't give them.
Well, this is it. I mean, and let's be fair. Let's be fair. It's not like they're just not going to give it to the justice group. They're not going to give
Not
it to
going to
us
give it to
either.
anybody.
They're
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 not
not
going to
going
give
to
it
give
anybody.
it
to
to anybody.
anyone
No, and that's
because
quite
it's exempt from
Yeah.
being public information.
and
Dignity.
frankly, nobody needs to see it.
Exactly. Only like the
know,
people who are involved, like only the scientists need to know about like the test
Exactly.
results and things, and
Yep.
then whatever they conclude will be passed on to the family. Even the family probably don't want to know the ins and outs of every little thing that was
No,
done in the autopsy because
Yep.
that's your, you know,
that's your
that's
child or your
yeah,
sister
Well,
or brother or yeah.
to say that it was covered up or people were not good at their job just because they're not giving you what you want is not right.
you know,
No.
it reeks
No.
of being desperate.
It's a small child kicking its feet and screaming
Yep.
because it can't get its way.
Right. I want.
Yeah,
And yep,
yeah. I'm gonna
exactly.
tantrum.
Yep. So here
You
we
can
go.
want to see blunt force trauma, but you'll never see it because it's not there. And if you cross-reference with actual blunt force trauma injuries, you'll see there's a very big difference in how they're explaining the injuries
From a
on the
medical
Crowleys.
well
The
from
other thing,
Louise, let me tell you from a medical standpoint, Catherine Michelle, in her conversation to Detective Gummer, tells Detective Gummer that it was possible with some kind of six-sided socket, et cetera, that was used to beat David Crowley about the head. If that is the case, and she said, these are her words, not mine, that the actual indentations went from the outer skull to the inner skull, there wouldn't be indentations. There would be
Like holes.
fractures.
holes,
There'd be depressions. There'd be
and there'd
fractures.
be star fractures. It's just not. It didn't happen.
Yeah, and this is not me talking. This is not me talking inexperienced. I've seen this. I've seen people hit in the head with a baseball bat. Okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a depressed skull fracture.
Isn't that why they call it a disfiguring injury?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't just leave a like a neat little hole.
Okay.
Well, I should say
Oh,
life-changing,
yeah.
It could be
because
that
it
as
does.
well.
The other thing as well, it's not actually identified the piece of skull that they're talking about as to whom it belongs to.
No, you're right, Sheila.
Well, I could
There's
tell
n-
you guys right for a fact, and I don't want to throw the name out there, but I'm gonna, so people can look. There's a paramedic. I don't know him personally, but I do know about his case. He was at a football game, and he was actually beaten after the football game by rival fans,
Yeah,
and he was hit in the head and numerous times. He wound up being in a coma, etc. This is somebody who had multiple blunt force trauma to the head.
yeah,
Okay. And the guy's name is Brian Stowe. It's easy enough to look up. This is what happens to people with multiple blunt force trauma. These are the signs you're gonna see. You know,
yeah,
you're gonna see fractures, you're gonna see somebody who's unconscious, you're gonna see, you're gonna see telltale marks. And
yeah,
when something travels through, you're not gonna have something that's beveled going outward on the inside of the skull if the actual um contact physical contact was made from the outside going toward the inside. It would have to be, I mean, somebody brought this up in one of the videos that Justice had did. you know what did they, this is when they said that somebody supposedly cut the skull apart and banged on it, da 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 da. I mean, fact of the matter is, you're not going to get indentations from the inside going out unless you were hitting from the inside.
exactly. But it's like with this whole cutting of the skin and everything,
Mm-hmm.
like because there's a multi-tool there that happens to have a knife blade on it. That knife blade, it wouldn't be sharp enough
Not to
to
cut bone.
to cut
No,
through
you
or cut
couldn't.
through a joint or something, and without sounding horrible, but you'd have to really hack that.
Your
And
average hunting knife wouldn't go through a bone. It would have to
no,
go through a joint.
There'd be telltale
accurately.
signs.
exactly.
There'd be
You'd
telltale
see,
signs.
There'd be
and
nicks on the end
also,
of the bone.
wouldn't there also be sort of telltale signs in the actual arm? You know, because let's face it, one of the hands on David isn't there, so you know, but the other one is. So if there was like defense marks or anything, they would be present on that side. But
Yep.
on the forearm and the arm that's
Yep.
remaining, then wouldn't there be, I don't know, like difference in the way that the muscle was because of the chemicals and things that you have in fight and flight and all this sort of thing?
I don't know about the muscles, but I can tell you this much: there would definitely be defensive wounds on,
Be
even
on the
if it wasn't at the end.
forearms and the hands.
Surely as well, there'd have to be like a grip mark or something as well. If somebody's like gripping his arm to
Yeah,
cut,
you would definitely get finger pad pressure marks.
Right. This
yeah,
is
or a strap mark or something,
Yeah.
and that would be on the arms that are still sort of, you know,
Yep.
there,
exactly.
and
This
then
is
like tissue damage, bruising, muscle.
that's what I was going to bring up. You're going to have bruising. You're going to have injury, physical injury. You're going to see that, and this doesn't matter if the person has been deceased for a day, an hour, or a month. Even after a month, you can still find bruising in an
Yeah.
autopsy.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's got to have an effect on how the decomp is, because it's already damaged and there's, you know, pools and things, so
Exactly.
it's got to still be there and be in a slightly different sort of manner, hence why they can tell some of these things, of these atrocities that have happened to people when they've come across bodies when they're out walking and find missing people and things like that, and they can, as long as there's still sort of tissue, it's not completely skeletonized, and if it's
And
skeletonized, you're looking at broken bones.
actually, too, what I think I want to bring up now as well is we talked about different things that Gummert had said directly, and Dan had brought up that Gummert was open, and you even said that they were open to new theories, etc., which they weren't. They said they weren't. When we were talking about the multiple blunt force trauma, it just dawned on me. Gummert actually brought up the fact of the police being on scene. He brought up the fact of them being at the autopsy. This is what Gummert said. This isn't me talking. This isn't you talking. This is Gummert.
My other professionals feel that no, we were here at the scene and we don't know the information firsthand, and we're confident with where we're at. And it's really, in a roundabout way, that's the answer I'm going to give you is myself and the other persons that were here on the scene, analyzing the data from the first call to the end. I want to just believe that we are where we need to be, and certainly you.
Okay, so they were there from the beginning to the end. They saw the damage. They saw the injuries.
Yeah.
So
And I'm sure that they've also seen suicides before, so they know what a suicide looks like, and they've seen murder before, so they know what murder looks like. They've probably seen an animal attack before,
well, that's
and they've
another thing
seen
too.
post-mortem scavenging
Right.
before.
That's another thing too. This video that they made, this Crowley Case Update of June 9th, they bring up some of the crime statistics of Apple Valley, and that Apple Valley is inexperienced with homicides. Apple Valley is inexperienced with anything other than minor crimes. Okay, I don't know, maybe DWI for an instance. Okay, but let's just go out there and say Apple Valley doesn't have a lot of homicides, but they have had homicides both before and after the Crowleys. And they're able to tell, again, based on their experience and their training, when they walk into someplace, they're able to tell what's a homicide and what is a suicide.
Yeah,
They can
and
tell.
what's made to look like a homicide, yeah, a suicide rather than a homicide,
And then
where
you
it
go
can
in,
falsify.
right, and then they bring up the fact too that you know the gun wasn't found wherever. The gun was found in its original resting place. We actually have a photo of it that was provided to us.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
We photoshopped it, remember? Apparently, because we don't have any facts. We photoshopped it. Anything that we do, we faked it. Got to remember that, Joe. We don't bother with experts. We just say our own stuff and then say we're experts.
Well, no, that's somebody else, but we actually have talked to experts that have gone on the record specifically for touch DNA, specifically psychologists that handle veterans who are going through problems. Okay, we've talked to these people. We've talked to, you know, different investigators. We've talked, and they all say the same thing. Just as Dan's own private investigator told him that David did this. There's no cast off. There's high velocity blood spatter. Ken Maines was specific when he told them everything he sees is consistent with gunshot wounds and gunshot wounds to the head.
Yep.
And he should know.
Yep. So I guess we're gonna end this at part one right now. And before we run out of time on
No, we
Zoom.
haven't got a time limit.
Oh, okay. So you want to continue then?
Yeah,
I'm
we can do.
okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, here we go.
We're only 3 minutes in.
I know, right?
Everybody will be asleep by now. Don't worry about it.
Gave him time and time again to come out and say,
Come on, Dan.
"Thanks,"
Here we
we're
go.
gonna say, look, we made some mistakes. We per se admit that things wasn't 100% right, things like that. And the answer over and again was no. And one thing he said in particular was, my professional opinion, I like to do X, Y, and Z. And he said to Catherine, in your profession,
Which we're still waiting for.
you do.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And so everyone as professionals are experts in certain things.
Actually, Detective Gummert and Dan is making an assumption. Just because you're trained in certain things does not make you an expert. You have
No.
to have experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If
Definitely.
I was an EMT and I worked inside of a building or a doctor's office or a hospital for 20 years, I'm not going to have the experience of an EMT who is out there in the field. Same thing goes for a medic. If I'm going to be outside, in uncontrolled circumstances versus inside in really good controlled circumstances, big difference.
Yeah.
Period. And it's always good to get additional feedback or criticisms from people not in your industry, not in your profession. And you do take them to heart, you consider them, and then you move on. So he's open to criticism, but he keeps mentioning the phrase, I don't want to say an expert, but he is the lead sergeant in the investigations. So what we have to remember to keep in mind here in a case like this is Apple Valley, Minnesota has 40 to 50,000 people population. He's probably good, and his detectives are probably very good in robbery, theft, stolen items, things like that. common, basic, low-level crimes. Maybe mid-level crimes. I don't know. They're probably very good at that. But what I hear Officer Gummer keep saying is that essentially we'll do our job, you do yours. Thanks for the helpful hints, but no thanks. We're good. We have everything down here. The professionals looked it over. We're all set. So I thought that was very interesting. One thing I would like to ask Gummert, which Catherine didn't, was how often do you deal with crimes of high-level crimes that deal with foul play?
I think that they've handled them quite a few times before and
Yeah.
after this.
Yeah.
I think another thing as well with those statistics that he was bringing up with the little pyramid things, there's they're crime statistics. There is no figure there for suicide.
Yeah.
It doesn't come into the percentile at all. So, what level suicides run at that same time span, I couldn't say. But because they're not a crime, an individual suicide is not a crime.
Right.
That's why there's no figure quoted.
Exactly. And, he's bringing up they were good at low-level crimes. They're good. He's essentially saying they're not good at high-level crimes.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. They have the training. You don't just get up one day and go, hey, I'm a detective. I'm going to go check me out a homicide today.
Well, you do if you're in the justice group.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Because I got to tell you, these guys go to school for this. They go for training.
Yeah.
Not only do they go for the original training, but they go for continuing education training. There are constant updates for this stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
This is it. But they've got this. There's a thing about this experience. But then it's like, well, okay, how many murders have the justice group solved?
Well, that's what I
How
was
many
wondering.
missing people have they found?
Yep.
How many cold cases have been solved? And where are they? Because I'm surprised that we're not having them thrown in our face to say, here, I worked on this one, I worked on this one, I worked on it. And if like that was shown to me, I would eat my hat and apologize.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Not one case has been brought up that has been solved. Not one case has been brought up that they've even worked on.
In actual fact,
Exactly.
it's the reverse, isn't it? They have been associated with cases where they have been asked not to continue researching.
It's easy to point the finger at people when you have no experience.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Foul play involved. And so that's the difference here is, and I think this is where the confusion comes into. I think solving normal everyday crimes, the Apple Valley Police Department, the detective unit, might be very good at solving the normal crimes. But how often do they?
He's sounding like Trump now.
Foul play in this particular Crowley case up and down the board. And so what I want to get into, number one, is some stats. This case, this particular triple homicide, I'm going to call it.
Double.
Which it's not.
Yeah.
Person is a triple homicide. Let's look back at some history in the Apple Valley crime. I've got it highlighted in.
I want to just note something really quick. I'm going to stop. You guys do see Apple Valley 2016, Apple Valley 2020. Remember, the Crowley case took place in 2014. So these crimes right here,
not the
okay,
correct,
your property, your volume, this has nothing to do with anything. And since he wants to bring up murder, there was 1, there was 2, there were 5, and there were 2. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong. There were 2 and there were 1. So there were 3 more recently, 3 more homicides that they dealt with. Okay, and that's just from 2016. Okay,
There's nothing detailing like double murder suicide.
no, there's nothing with suicide at all. Everything is
No,
literally murder or manslaughter.
no.
Yep.
But in those statistics, though, would that come in under murder,
The suicide would not come
homicide?
in on the murder. No.
No, but
Suicide.
would it come in as a double homicide, though?
Oh, there was a triple homicide like he's talking about. It would have been listed as 3, and it
Right,
wasn't.
yeah. But for the Crowley case, for sake of example, that would have been listed as a double murder or double
Right, and
homicide.
it was all of the U.S. Department of Justice records show that they show it as a double murder suicide, which
Right.
is another thing. Now that stuff right there is actually handled by the FBI. Okay, so
Right. So it's not going to be in the Apple Valley stats anyway.
right, so you're talking the uniform crime reports, okay, which is done by the FBI. It's a program that law enforcement agencies clear or close their offenses in one of two ways: by arrest or exceptional means. Okay, so now they're saying not only is Apple Valley, the BCA, Hennepin County, and the Dakota County Sheriff's Department wrong, as well as Ken Maines, but they're saying the FBI is wrong as well. And one thing I don't like that's getting done in here is the fact that right now in this present day, in the scheme of things, the police departments all over the United States are under scrutiny, and they're taking that scrutiny and trying to mold it to themselves. They're trying to get people to see things their way by utilizing a public distrust right now, and that's wrong.
Yes, it's whipping up people into a frenzy that they don't really need to be in at the moment.
Right, exactly. All right, so here we go, some more stuff.
Although in 2016, on the left-hand side here, you can look at a category called murder and manslaughter. In 2016, they had 1. This year, this is according to their own stats, not mine, their own stats say 2020, there's projected to be 2 if you look at the right-hand side. Murder and manslaughter, right-hand side, projection is 2. So, we have to keep in mind the Crowley case had 3 murders, 3 manslaughters.
3 mass slaughters is more than 3 murders.
In one
Yep,
crime,
exactly, it's
one
wrong.
crime scene. So what I'm getting at here is, although when government makes those statements, we can look at these other types of crimes here. Under property, they have things like arson, motor vehicle theft, burglary, larceny, and theft. I'm sure that's what keeps their department very busy. On the right side, you see rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. A bunch of those make up those violent types of violent crimes.
I want to bring something up as well. Murder and manslaughter, rape, okay, and aggravated assault. Those types of crime are usually, and it's easy to find, you can go look anywhere that does statistics. Most times when that type of a crime happen, it is usually a family or a close family friend. It's usually
Yep.
a family member or a close
Yep.
family friend.
They may even be good at that. What the point I'm trying to stress here is that the case that we're talking about, and the case that we've been talking about for 5 years, is a situation where this department does not have experience. Does not have experience. That's
Because
a fact,
Dan says
factual
so.
Statement and an opinion. That's what the last
It is an opinion.
2019 from the Apple Valley Police Department. Breakdown of the crimes they handle. Murder highlighted 0. So it's safe to say that his department was over there dealing with a triple homicide case that included foul play,
It is not safe to say.
that included staging,
Can you have a triple homicide case that doesn't include foul play?
arena of things that is way above and beyond this department's normal course. Normal course. So that also is a fact. I'm not saying that's wrong. They can't help how many murders and manslaughter happens within their city limits. That's not their problem. I can't blame them for not dealing with more murders. That's great they have so few. When they stumble upon a case January 17th of 2015 where there's 3 dead bodies, arms and heads missing, hands
Arms missing. When did that happen?
dog running around. We have things. I think what we're
They're not
looking for
missing.
is number one. It would be nice to get an admission just to say, you know what, this was way over our heads. We did
But
the
it
best
wasn't.
we could. I know we made some mistakes, but the decision still stands. That would be awesome to hear something like that.
But that's what they
That would
said.
be
Was,
awesome.
Yep, exactly.
We already have presented to the police department. Item 57, the final
Here we go.
bullet fragment found in the attic of the Crowley home, discovered on February 18th of 2015, an entire month later. So that's an anomaly. After doing the investigation on that, they found there was no blood on that bullet fragment. Comes back, the test from the lab says there's touch DNA.
no, it doesn't.
Again, it did not say there was touch DNA. It says DNA. We specifically read it. I'm going to refer back to the lab report number 4, page number 4 of 5, item number 57-1.
Of David Crowley. And no blood. David Crowley died allegedly according to the official narrative of a gunshot to the head, through the skull, through the brain, and out the back of the skull. There's going to be blood on that bullet, and a lot of it. We're talking microscopes. Microscope could not find.
We don't use microscope.
I want to just bring this up too. We talked to experts, and I'm going to name them: Greg Hampaikian and Dan Crane. These are both professors. They're also both people who are world known, okay, for their work on the John Benet Ramsey case. They were involved in the Amanda Knox case as well. And both of them said that, and we have this in writing. Louise, you have copies of it too. We have this in writing, that the DNA or any blood, etc., could have been damaged in transit. And they're talking about from the time it was fired out of the gun to hitting the skull, to exiting the skull, to hitting the sheetrock, etc. So, where he's saying that this is not possible and there's no way there would be no blood, a bullet heats up when it's fired. That's going to account for some of the blood being lost, passing through objects. That is going to also take some of the blood with it.
No blood whatsoever. So that, as far as experienced detectives, you don't have to be an experienced detective to know that that's not right. That hole in the ceiling was not there when police arrived on January 17th, 2015.
We know this is wrong as well.
It wasn't there. There was some debate back and forth.
Even Greg concedes that it was there.
Photographs that exist. No officers knew of a hole in the ceiling, and it was news to them when it was reported by someone at the scene on January 19th, 2 days after the bodies were discovered, after police were investigating a random 911 call for suspicious activity in a Crowley
No, it wasn't.
vacant after the bodies
It
were
wasn't
found.
suspicious activity at the house. It was a vehicle. Lots of vehicles.
911 was called.
Hey, hey, I just wanted to bring this up too. Remember how I brought up the speed of a bullet and all that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, a 40 caliber bullet would hit approximately 302 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay,
Yeah.
when it was fired. So that's 300. Water boils at 212.
I think your
Yeah.
only hope for retention of DNA type material is where the bullet's actually mushroomed and it's folded into
Yep,
the actual casing.
yep, exactly. So let's get this over here again.
A neighbor. And by the time police arrived, no one was there. Later they said, well, we were there doing some things, cleaning up. But obviously something was loud enough to concern a neighbor to call 911, and I'm guessing more than likely that's when that shot was fired into the ceiling to produce the magic bullet.
We think.
Indeed, Your Honor.
Again, seasoned
Bullshit.
detectives.
Okay, we need to pause this right now because in order for them to have done this, they would have had to stop everything they were doing at the house. They would have had to go to the police department. They would have had to get into the evidence room. They would have had to take the seal off of the weapon. They would have
And
had
they're
to
like triple
bring it
sealed,
back.
aren't they?
Right, exactly. And then they would have had to bring it to the house, fire the weapon, and then put everything back together and sneak it back into the police department.
Put it all back in the original or forge all of the
And those seals,
evidence things. And you can't forge them. They're like literally one of a kind, aren't they? You'd have to get
that's
a
what I was just going to
complete
bring.
new
That's what I was
bag.
just going to bring up. Yeah, the seals. The only way to remove those seals, what happens is they take the gun and they rack it so that it's back, and they take the seal and they actually wrap the seal through the barrel of the gun and through the actual trigger mechanism so
But
that it
that's
stays
like
open.
securing it. That's securing it. But then
Exactly.
there's like tagging it
Well,
and tagging those tags. Then there's tagging the box. Then
right.
there's
Well,
tagging the bag that the box goes in, and then there's probably another one on it for
well,
safety.
here's the most important part here though. That when they rack that gun and they put that first seal on there, the only way to get that off is by cutting it.
Hmm.
Which means they would have had to replace it with another one with a totally different number on it.
Exactly. And
And another thing that they would have had to have done
getting
as
past the
well,
cameras.
they
Right.
would have
There's
had to
cameras
have,
everywhere. I'm sure that the whole police department was in on it. I'm telling you.
they
As
would
far as
also
these
have had to
guys.
get a bullet with the sufficient amount of DNA on it.
Well, I got to bring that one up too because that's been posed a while back. You see,
On the gun range.
somebody went to the gun range. They took a bullet that David had already fired. Even though it was mushroom, they managed to get it to go down that barrel, no problem at all. And there's your DNA or your touch DNA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sadly, there wasn't any touch DNA.
There wasn't any touch DNA. There wasn't any, I mean, the fact of the matter is there's no magic bullet. You know, like we've said, the police walked into a horrific scene. They may have developed tunnel vision, and they or it could have been where Apple Valley thought BCA had it, BCA thought Apple Valley had it. Dan's statement that no police officer saw that bullet hole may be accurate, but it's not stating that there was no bullet hole.
No, it's a very different thing.
And you have to remember as well that not only did the Apple Valley have all of their collection of photographs, BCA have got their collection of photographs, and the whole thing was videoed by numerous different officers and investigators as well. So they have got footage that they can go through and go and clarify it. But
It's actually
at the same
very
time, they
possible.
found a hole, and then they found a bullet through where that hole was. So you kind of go, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it most likely is a duck.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's entirely possible that there's video of that bullet hole or photos of it.
Yeah, we just haven't seen them.
There were over 800 photos taken, and only 400 and change were released. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So,
I'm actually surprised they got that many.
Yep, exactly.
On a murder case and a manslaughter, I don't have background in that.
Thank you.
That doesn't make sense. Officer Gummer went on to say that at the end of the day, we felt we did everything that we could in this case.
Which they did.
Another almost laughable comment. So they did not do everything they could. I think they thought they did everything they could, but armchair investigate case than the local authorities themselves. Which leads to the next question: was it a cover-up? If it was a cover-up, was the police involved with it? Was Officer Gummer involved with it?
Okay, I need to stop this here.
Yeah, go easy with that, Dan.
I need to stop right here. This man is alleging a cover up by not only the police department, but by the lead investigator. I have to say that over the last 2 years, maybe a little longer, I have spoken several times to Detective Gummer, and he has been very upfront with me about everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, my impression of him, I highly doubt I would probably be willing to stake my ass on it that there's no cover up. And I could tell you right now, Detective James Gummer did not participate in any type of a cover up.
Shouldn't you have evidence before you make allegations like that?
It would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think he should have evidence to make the idea, because what he just did in this he published this.
Yeah.
So he now slandered and libeled Detective Gummer. He has now tarnished this detective sergeant's career by making this statement.
Oh, but he's got the caveat here. Or did Officer Gummert not know there was a cover-up and honestly thought this was the resolution of the case?
Right. I mean, let me tell you something right now. Gummer did not. There was no cover up, and we know this.
We know this.
I can't fathom how this guy could come out and make a statement like that, fully knowing he's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that Detective Gummer actually has seen this, because I made sure he saw it. And I hope that he sees what we're doing right now, because I want him to see that as well, because I really think he should take legal action.
I think he should.
Okay,
The thing is,
unfounded allegations.
He probably won't, because of the effect it would have on the Crowley and the Alarm families.
Well, they've actually tried to shield the Alarm family and the Crowley family from a lot of things, but there's a difference between shielding a family and having your entire career tarnished by an armchair investigator, in his own words.
The problem is, this should have been trodden on several years ago.
Yep.
It's just snowballed. It's built up a head of steam, and it's the crazy train now.
Yep.
Or did Officer Gummer not know there was a cover-up and honestly thought this was the resolution of this case? Actually thought David did it. That's the question we're at.
It's not really a question, though, is it?
No, it's not.
Gummer isn't gullible and stupid. He's a decorated officer with many years' experience, and it's just insulting hearing this kind of rubbish.
I think Gummer and everybody who worked on this case are pretty honorable people, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would say so. I've never seen or heard anything
But
that
you know what it boils down to? At the end of the day, Gummer isn't playing ball. He's not
Yeah,
playing
no,
Dan's game, and Dan doesn't like it. So
no,
Dan tries to insinuate that other things are said or people are incompetent, because everybody's incompetent in this world apart from Dan, Catherine, Greg, and Sophia.
yeah. I
They're the
wonder,
experts in everything.
in that pyramid of crime statistics, was there anything for accountancy fraud and tax evasion?
Well, yes.
Well, just remember something else too.
Charities.
You're not gonna have as many murders as you do robberies. You're not gonna have as many murders as you do assault. It's not gonna happen that way. Murder, it takes a lot for somebody to get murdered.
Yeah, particularly in a
Yeah.
place like that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm really going to end this right now because we still have 26 minutes into the video from Dan to go. And I really want to make sure that this gets edited as part 1 and gets put out there, because I'm pretty sure we probably have a little bit of time on there. I'm thinking we probably have at least 40 minutes, if not longer, out there.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
You
can
never
you
stop the
stop
recording
share?
then.
Okay,
Okay.
stop recording.